Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I really appreciate all the support you've shown in the last video. It really means a lot to me. Helps keep things going and moving in the right direction. So keep it up. Really appreciate it. As promised, I wanted to bring you guys along for part 2, bike setup. We're going to go over a couple of different things today. We're going to go over how I have my cockpit set up, bar position, handlebar position, levers, things like that. We'll briefly go over some of the things that I've added to the bike, and then we'll kind of take a little bit deeper dive into the actual suspension settings. I want to try and keep that as simple as I possibly can, because it's really easy to get really far down the rabbit hole. You can really get into the weeds with suspension setup, and there's a lot of really good information out there, including your owner's manual. And every bike is different. No two bikes are going to be set up the same. No two riders are going to use the same setup, even if they are on the same bike. I don't want to go super deep into that, and I am no expert on this, okay? I grew up bombing around on an old RM250 two-stroke that never saw a motocross track. So all of my experience is just really exploring dirt roads, single track, desert roads, fire roads, logging roads on whatever motorcycle I had at the time. Just so happens to be that I've kind of graduated to the old man's game, I guess, if you will. Now I do it on adventure bikes. Starting in the back, we'll go with the luggage. You guys saw the luggage from the last video. The Mosco Reckless 80 is awesome for me. Sits nice and tight to the bike. It's not super heavy. In fact, everything you see here, 50 pounds. So not a whole lot really in it. Everything is nice and low, nice and tight to the bike. One thing I stress is balance, and that's what bike setup is all about, is keeping the bike as balanced as you possibly can. So my exhaust on the 890, the exhaust is on the right side of the bike. So everything that's lightweight is on the exhaust side, and everything that's heavy is down low on the left side of the bike. And that gives me a pretty good 50-50 split between left and right. We've got that sitting on a Perrin Moto large luggage rack. I ran the KTM rack for a long time, and it was fine, but I found myself wanting to strap a fuel bottle or fuel bladders or other things to the rack in addition to the luggage itself, and that just kind of makes that possible. Double take mirrors, these are the shorties, the 3.5s. I think these are the version 2.0s. I've got the 1.0s on the other bike, and they're fine, but the 2.0s have been great. I like the shorties on the 890. They sit inside the width of the handlebars, which for me, on this particular bike, I really like. Foot pegs, I dropped the foot pegs about a ½ inch lower and a little bit further back just to give me some more leg room. These are the Vanash Motorsports foot pegs. They look good and they serve their purpose. Stock KTM seat, but I am running a mesh seat cover. Gives me a little bit of cushion and just kind of keeps the airflow. I don't do a big tank bag. I had the Nomax, really liked it, but I wasn't using 5% of its capacity, so I downsized to the No Mini, and it is perfect for everything that I put in here, which isn't much. I keep a little Tinkerer's tool set with me so I can adjust all this stuff on the fly. I'll explain some of that here in a bit. Other than that, I keep a tire gauge, some cables, earplugs, registration, maybe I think a multi-tool is in there. That's really about it. Quad lock, nothing else. I don't have a big GPS bracket. I don't do bar risers. These are the stock hand guards. They work fine. Maybe if I destroy one, then I'll replace them. I do have a GoPro mount on the windscreen facing this way. And really, that's about it. I'm going to grab the camera, pull you guys around, show you how I have the cockpit set up, share some of my philosophies, and then we're going to go for a ride. We'll kind of loosely touch on suspension settings, because to me, getting a bike to fit you and the controls and whatnot, getting a bike to fit you is 50% of the equation. The other 50% of the equation is making sure the suspension settings are exactly where you need them to be so the bike can do exactly what you want it to do. So, all right, I just want to start this off with stating how important I think it is to take a paint pen. Hopefully you guys can see that. Take a paint pen and put witness marks on everything that you tighten down. After you've made your adjustments, get everything torqued, and just grab a paint pen and make witness marks on every nut and bolt that you turn. And I've even got them on the axle nuts. Hopefully you can see that. And I got them on the pinch bolts. Everything that you turn, even the triple clamp. Because anything that can work loose will work loose. And this was just a trick that I learned back when I was working in an off-road shop building Jeeps. After you've adjusted everything and everything's torqued down, just take a paint pen, pick your favorite color, and put little witness marks on everything. That way, it's easy before every ride or every couple of rides when you do your maintenance. You can just do a quick nut and bolt check, visually looking at all the nuts and all the bolts. And if anything is misaligned, you know that it's worked itself loose and you got to tighten it up. So anyway, I won't harp on about that. It's just a little hot tip for those of you that like to tinker, especially if you like to tinker. It's really easy to forget to tighten up your bolts. So moving on, we're going to start from left to right. We're going to go from the clutch side over to the brake side for my cockpit and how I have my controls set up, my bar arrangement. If you notice how I have my clutch lever. So I actually have it moved in towards the center line of the bar about an inch. And what that does is it allows me to grab the bar at the furthest point out. So where the lever is at the longest, okay, I can pull that in with one finger, no problem. It gives me a lot more modulation, gives me a lot more feel, and I don't have to use as much hand strength. I really didn't want to drop $100 on, you know, a one finger clutch. I didn't want to spend $300 or $400 on a hydraulic clutch upgrade. This really made a world of difference. And I did the same thing over on the brake side. So I moved it in about an inch, and that just gives me so much more feel in the brake lever. So try that. If you're struggling with getting some feel out of your levers, try moving them in a little bit. You may have to make some concessions with your, you know, in terms of interference between like master cylinder or cables and your. It can be kind of a tight package, but kind of play around with that, and you'll be surprised at how much more feel you can get. So these 890s, they have 3 settings, and I've got mine in the most forward setting, but I'm able to rotate the actual bar clamps, and it brings the handlebars back just a touch. So these aren't fully forward, they're about a half step back from that. I like to stand up a lot, but on-road, off-road, helps stretch my legs out, helps keep them comfortable, really reduces fatigue. And so by moving the bars up on the triple clamp, it also raised them about a half an inch. And then I'll have to run bar risers. So this kept me from having to do that. Now, one thing it did do, and one thing you have to be careful of, is the steering pivot here. If you want to keep the end of your handlebars, so the point of your handlebars all the way across to the steering pivot. So there's the steering pivot up there. And then there's the other. You want to keep the end of your handlebars as far away from the steering pivot as you can for your setting. Because if that steering pivot if the end of the handlebars, which is your point of leverage, gets too close to the steering pivot, then you end up with a really twitchy motorcycle. Now for single track and tight maneuvering and slow maneuvering, you may want that, but for me personally, I want some stability. So the compromise for me is I rolled my handlebars back a little bit, put them in a little bit more of a relaxed position. Also dropped my levers down. They're at a fairly aggressive downward angle. They're just enough to where when I'm sitting down, I can reach them, but when I'm standing up, I don't have a really sharp bend in my wrist. The other thing you'll notice is I dropped the forks down through the triple clamps all the way to the top of the fork caps. KTM, or I should say the dealers, when they set these bikes up, they set these up so that the forks are
about an inch, or sorry, about a half inch up through the triple clamps. And what that does, it creates a fairly twitchy and unpredictable front end at speed, especially if you hit a washout, or, you know, the front end, you're going around a corner in the dirt, especially with sand, and you hit something, then it can really exaggerate the twitchiness of the front end. So I dropped my forks down the triple clamps all the way to the very top. It didn't really affect my ride height much. At least if it did, it's not something that I can perceive. And that really made a difference in how the bike handled. So yeah, just little things like that really can affect the handling of the bike. Now, I also like to run full preload on the front forks. Not because the springs aren't stiff enough, they're plenty stiff for me. I don't have to change any of that. But I like having all the travel in the front end, and it rakes the front end out just a little bit more. So it gives me a little bit more of a slack steering angle and really helps stabilize the bike. All right, now one thing that I think is also really important is carrying a little toolkit, a little tinkerer's toolkit, as I like to call it, with you on the bike. That way you can make all these adjustments on the fly. I'll put this back up here so I can kind of show you what's in here. And so yeah, you can see I've got flathead screwdriver, some Allen keys, some Torx, got a little ratchet with a 10 mil, and that just makes it so this lives all the time. This just lives right here in the tank bag. Close that up. That way, if I need to make any adjustments on the fly, I can do it. I don't have to stop. I don't have to get my tool roll out of my side bags and, you know, yard sale all my crap everywhere. I can just get in the tank bag, do what I need to do, whatever adjustments, or if something comes loose, I can just tighten it all up. Keep a little toolkit handy, a little tinkerer's toolkit. So we're gonna suit up and we're gonna go for a ride. I'm gonna kind of talk you through how I have my suspension settings, why I set them the way I set them, and we'll be right back with you.
And we're back on. So I found a little loop that I like to make. It's a fun little loop because it's kind of a crappy road, so there's lots of bumps and uneven surfaces. It's fairly twisty. It's the closest thing I can get to being able to test any kind of adjustments I've made or anything I've changed on the bike without actually getting off-road. The nearest off-road trail to me is 2 hours away. During the week I just don't have the time, so this is kind of as good as it gets for me, unless I can do this on a weekend. For the sake of this video, I zeroed out all of my suspension settings. I put them all at neutral. KTM has their recommended standard settings, and that's where I put the bike to. My preferred settings aren't far off from that. They're only a couple of clicks on the front and a couple of clicks on the rear, both compression and rebound. However, my front preload, I max out my front preload, regardless of the terrain that I'm riding, regardless of how much weight I have on the bike. And that's just because it helps rake the bike out and maximize the actual suspension stroke. It just gives the front end a little bit more stability. Going around corners like this corner, it's a fairly sharp corner. So yeah, going around this corner, it's a little bit slower to turn in, but I would rather have a slower turning bike than a twitchy one. So find a loop, whether it's on-road or off-road, that's 4, 5, 6 miles if you can, that you know really well, and go and ride your bike bone stock, nothing on it, factory suspension settings. Go ride it 2 or 3 times and get a really good feel for what the bike wants to do, and then make your adjustments. Take your tools with you. That's why I showed you guys my little tinkerer's toolkit. Take all that stuff with you on your ride. Make a little kit so that you can adjust things on the fly. That way you're not, okay, I gotta go out for a ride, then I gotta go home. Then I go back out for a ride, then I gotta go home. That's just a waste of time. It's not efficient at all. So take a little toolkit with you that you can just reach into a tank bag or reach into a pocket, make your adjustments. Once you make your adjustments, go on another ride with nothing on the bike, no luggage, nothing. And then get the bike dialed in for the way you ride when the bike is unloaded. Then put your luggage on it. Or if you travel with a passenger on the back, go and ride it with that person on the back. Make your adjustments. And then make a note of how far you had to move your clickers, your compression, your rebound, your preload. That way, when you're by yourself or you're just out for a day ride, or let's say you go to camp, you unload all your crap, put your tent up, all that stuff, and now you have an unloaded bike, you can just quickly go back to your settings of an unloaded bike, and you're not trying to, you know, fight a bike that has got too much preload or too much compression or not enough compression or, you know, whatever. So that's my hot tip for finding out, you know, what your suspension settings, you know, what you like. So right now, with the KTM's suggested standard settings, the bike feels pretty good. I've got 50 pounds on the back, so I want to know what the bike's going to do with luggage on the back. I already know what it's going to do unloaded. So with the factory settings at standard, or what I would call 0 or neutral, the bike feels pretty good. It's a little skippity in the back, like the rebound is a little too fast in the back. So KTM's factory setting for rear rebound is 15 clicks out from full in, and the compression is 15 clicks out from full in. So I'm happy with the compression. I'm not going to mess with the compression of the rear, but I kind of feel like I'm riding a pogo stick a little bit. When I hit a bump, the back end kind of wants to buck me off just a little bit. It's reacting a little too fast. So I'm going to make this loop, and I'm going to turn around, and I'm going to make my adjustments to the rear rebound. Now the front compression feels really good. I like my compression to be pretty high in the front. The rebound, just like the back, is a little quick for my preference. I don't ride really fast off-road, so my initial thoughts are the KTM settings are a little quick in the rebound. Compression feels pretty good though. Now the rear preload is a little higher than I prefer, and it's making the front end want to dive a little bit going into turns. Not that it's not stable, but the rear end is a little bit higher than I want it to be, even with 50 pounds. And 50 pounds is not a lot. It really isn't. You know, these bikes are, you know, adventure bikes are built to, you know, handle another passenger of 150 pounds or so. So 50 pounds over the rear end, you know, over the rear shock is really not that big of a deal. So I'm going to back off the rear preload a little bit, and just to slack out the front and give me a little bit more stability in the front. So those are the two adjustments I'm going to make. Really the three. I'm going to slow down the front rebound, I'm going to slow down the rear rebound, and I'm going to take some preload out of the rear shock. And we'll make this loop again. We'll try this loop again. Go from there. I've actually never been down over here. I usually just find a parking lot, like, you know, on the road or something, but hey, this is pretty good. This works. And pull over here in the shade. Tinker with the bike a bit. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna slow the rebound down on the front, so you can't see it, but it's right there. I don't know if you can see that. It's right there. Okay, so I'm actually going to turn that in. A couple more clicks. So go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's 10 clicks from full in. So that's going to slow down the rebound. I'm not going to touch the compression. I'm actually quite happy with the compression. The rear, I'm going to back off the preload, grab my toolkit, just my little Tinker's toolkit. So I'm going to back off the preload, a couple of turns. Okay. So KTM's preload adjusters right there, and the compression adjusters, or the rebound adjusters up there. Okay, so I have a little, I don't know if you can see that, but I have a little mark right there. Okay, so a little mark right there. That's, so once I go all the way around, that's one full turn. 1, 2. So that's back to my preferred setting. Okay. Now, my rebound. Slow down the rear. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Put the tools away. Job done. Let's go. Okay, so we took a couple of turns out of the rear preload, so 2 full turns, and we took a little bit of rebound out and took a little bit of rebound out of the front. So we'll see how it handles. Yep, it's a little bit slower to turn. Now these are far from like twisty, but you know, they're pretty good. It's a fun road, but it's also really uneven, so you get a pretty good idea of how the bike wants to handle the twisty road when it's hitting bumps. Did not expect to see this though. What's going on here? There's a little pre-runner Tacoma. I'm not messing around with that. That's annoying. Besides, the good part of the road starts pretty much here anyway. So in terms of how the bike handles now after the adjustments, really to give you an idea, if you can predict what the bike wants to do, then it makes it so much more trustworthy, and it helps your confidence. I want a very predictable and very trustworthy and very balanced feeling motorcycle, and that is everything when it comes to bike setup. You spend all that money, you know, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, sometimes $30,000 on an adventure bike. You want to get the most out of it as you possibly can, whether you're new to adventure riding or whether you're coming from a 20-year career of professional supercross, like whatever. You want the bike to perform and to do the things that you are expecting it to do. You know, these bikes are designed for covering big distances and then being able to go and explore really wherever you want, and as long as your skills can support it and the bike will fit, there's really no limit to what you can do on these bikes. I know what this motorcycle is capable of just from seeing what other riders are doing with them, and I'll be completely honest with you, I don't have a big enough set of balls to do what Birchie's doing and what Rieman's doing and some of these. Like, I don't have a big enough set of balls to ride a 500-pound, you know, basically a 500 EXC with a 900cc twin cylinder. So getting back to my settings on the 890, they're not too far from the KTM's factory settings. I go a little bit slower on the rebound, both front and rear, and I back the preload off a little bit. I weigh 180 pounds, and I got 50 pounds of luggage on the bike. That's 230 pounds. For the way I like to ride and the pace, and that's a big one, for the pace that I ride, both on-road and off-road, I don't need more than that. I don't need more than that. So, Yeah, if I had even less luggage, like when I take my luggage off, I'd back the preload in the rear down to nothing. I don't ride it hard enough to bottom out the suspension. So we're gonna head on home, get on back to the house. I got some stuff to do before before school gets out for the day. So I appreciate all of you coming along. I know this was a little bit of a ramble, but it's a lot of information that I really wanted to get out. And so I really appreciate you guys coming along for this ride. I appreciate all the support. You know the drill. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, you know, give me the thumbs up and all the things that make YouTube happy enough to keep putting my videos out there. So it's a big undertaking and I couldn't do it without you guys. So I appreciate each and every one of you. Until next time, keep it upright and we'll catch you guys later.